always something, which refers to the saying like there's always something wrong, and which is good for designers because that gives us plenty of things to work on. But I picked the name because it's always something gets down to thing, and that's what's really important because I'm a designer of things. And one thing I forgot when I came here was my pith helmet, and I'm really pissed off that I didn't bring it to take on safari. But things are really important. So you can see with this picture of the queen, if you take away that thing on her head, she's just an old lady. See? Queen, old lady. But what if she had something else? Or how about that? So you can see that things matter. They matter. Things make things better. Sounds circular, but designers like Karen Rashid, who named his book, I Want to Make the World Better. Because I think things are a nice way of persuading people, and they can inspire people, and they create variety. So that's why stuff's important. Because we design stuff, activities, experiences. That's what designers do. They think ahead. Simple. Like this Norman Bell Getty's airplane that he designed, where he was thinking what airplanes could be like. Design is what separates animals from people. It's the human need to think of new things and take things that were invented, like firecrackers, make them into little guns, and then through design develop them so they work better and better and look better. And until now, they really work well. But you can make them into toys too, which I think is the problem. Because then the kids grow up with the little toys, and then they want to play with the big toys. So that's what I think is not thinking ahead. And a good example of not thinking ahead is our little incursion into Iraq. But back to design, Victor Papanek, the famous industrial designer who wrote the book Design for the Real World, said that industrial design is the most dangerous profession. And I think he meant it was dangerous because the stuff that we make gets repeated a lot. But there's other professions that are worse. See, it's always something. So a lot of the things that we design, we think are going to be good, but they have unintended consequences, like stairs. So these beautiful stairs in the Apple store are really great. Even these kind of ugly stairs are good, except for if you're in a wheelchair. So the things we design actually become barriers for people who can't use them. So it's always something. Buttons seem like a great idea until you get arthritis or you can't move your fingers enough to button your shirt. Potato peelers, can be uncomfortable. Or even worse, medicine bottles that, you can't see what's in it, especially when you're old and you need the medicine. So the stuff that we design can become a barrier just as much as it can become something good. fix those problems. Like this, I don't know if you're familiar with this bottle that was designed by Deborah Adler when she was a student in New York, and it's designed so that it has a bigger place for the label so that you can read it easier and color coding, and it's being produced by Target. Glasses help a little bit, or you can have Velcro instead of buttons on your, or laces on your shoes. So new technology helps to solve some of those problems. And this is a man with his wearable computer. Or these, what are they called? Cobra or whatever, artificial feet, where your guy from South Africa now can run faster than people with feet like mine. I think this is a really interesting conundrum of, what are we going to do when artificial people are better than us? Who wouldn't want to be a little artificial if you had heart problems and you needed a defibrillator implanted in you to keep you alive? Who wouldn't do that? This is a concept that I worked on where we designed a cell phone that would be implanted right into your head. It seemed like a good idea until I started wondering what would happen if my mother called me in the middle of the night. But nowadays we can, grow things as big as we want. We can make ourselves as big as we want. And who knows what the future is going to be. But that's what designers are for, to figure that out and make it better. But it's always something. Now a little bit about me. It seems like everyone's been showing their baby picture, so will I. So here's my story. I was named after the Tucker car. There we go. So I was named after it because my dad was an industrial designer, and he was working on the car when I was born, and he thought that Tucker went nicely with Viemeister. And I think it's great having an unusual name and being named after a product. So I was raised in Ohio, in Yellow Springs, where Horace Mann, one of the great educators of the world, was working at Antioch College, and he said to be ashamed to die until you have won some victory for humanity. And so that's what I've been trying to do. And especially my mother was. So my mother went to Indaba College, and she was sort of the software side of the family. She was interested in social things and, doing good in the community. And my dad was the hardware guy, the designer. So that made me the convergence between hardware and software. The mix. And that's what industrial design is, the combination of all those things into one kind of experience. So my dad, after he went to Pratt Institute, went to work with one of his teachers, Gordon Lippincott, and they started this company called Lippincott and Margulies, and that's where he was working when he worked on the Tucker car. It's a cool car. It had a lot of innovations, like a helicopter engine, and the headlight in the front turned when you turned the steering wheel. So here's a picture of a full-size clay model that they made in Chicago at the plant, and that's Walter Margulies standing next to the clay model. He rushed out to Chicago to have his picture taken next to it when he found out that the last check from the Tucker company had bounced. So he went out, had his picture taken, and then pulled his boys off the job. So meanwhile, back in Yellow Springs, this is Antioch College, where my parents were living, and my dad designed the logo for the college. And he also designed, of course, the logo for his own company. He designed studios, and they also designed their studio. And Ohio's out in the country, so they pretended like they were really in the country. And they designed a bunch of interesting things, like the darkroom timer. I don't think, maybe you have it down here. And he designed our house, that's me as a kid. And then I got a little older, and my brother and I opened a jewelry store where we made all of our own jewelry and tried to sell it. It was called Ohio Silver, so that's why I'm dressed as the Lone Ranger. And my brother still does stuff like that, making being a craftsman. But I went to Pratt also to learn to be an industrial designer because I got tired of making all the stuff myself. So that's me with the white pants on. And one of my teachers there was Rowena Reed Costello, who was one of the founders of the Pratt Industrial Design Program. And a cool quote of hers was, "If you can't make them more beautiful, what's the point?" Made you realize why, don't make a bunch of crap, in other words. Anyway, after she died, we took her papers and put them together and made a book called Elements of Design, and it shows all the kind of exercises and things that we learned at Pratt, so you can buy the book and learn how to be a good designer. And after I graduated from Pratt, I went to work at with Wyman and Cannon. Lance Wyman is a famous graphic designer. Well, they were both industrial designers, but he became famous as a graphic designer, designing symbols and things. And we worked on making all these symbols and signage for the zoo in Washington. And then I started working with David Stoll, and that became Smart Design. And Smart Design is famous for our work creating the OXO good grips. And Sam Farber came to us with the idea of designing a potato peeler that would be comfortable for him to use and his wife, who was getting arthritis and getting old. And so we made a bunch of different handle mock-ups to try and figure out how to make a comfortable handle for people with arthritis. And we figured it out. And that was, we started realizing that we couldn't sell enough potato peelers to people with arthritis because people with arthritis don't want to buy a potato peeler for people with arthritis. But luckily, the handles were better for everybody, which is where the idea of universal design comes from. If you design something that's better for someone with a handicap, it could be better for everybody. And if it is, then the person with a handicap doesn't have a handicap anymore. So, and the product tells a story. Like the little fins on the good grips tell people that these are going to be comfortable and fun to use. And we've designed a bunch of other things that are easy for people with less dexterity to use. Like it's important for them to also drink wine. And it's been picked up, it's a very very popular product, and you can see on Jesus.com shows it as one of his favorite products. That wasn't Photoshop. One of the other famous projects that I worked on was this telephone answering machine that I worked on with Lisa Krohn. It was her project at Cranbrook. And the idea was that the telephone answering machines are very complicated, so we used the metaphor of file effects to organize the functions. And it won the Forum of Finlandia competition and showed me that the prize was $70,000. And I was like, wow, $70,000 for a student project, not bad. So I worked at, after I worked with Smart for a long time, I went and opened the New York office of Frog Design. And after that, I went to work with Razorfish, the digital giant. And we believe that everything that can be digital will be. So that was a great place to work for a few years until the bubble burst. And then I went to work with opened the New York office of Springtime, which is a Dutch industrial design company from Amsterdam. And that was fun. We worked on a lot of cool projects, including designing a concept car for Toyota, which they won't let us show. So now I'm working at Rockwell Group, and we do anything at Rockwell Group. Oops. We're designers and mostly architects who work on all kinds of different things. David's famous for designing restaurants. This is Rosa Mexicano, which is a Mexican restaurant, and I like these little Acapulco divers on the wall. And we also are doing all the restaurants for, what's his name, Nobu, which is a cool Japanese restaurant. And we just did this wine bar in the St. Regis in New York City that is very cool, but also has a interactive wine selecting system that we created on that's projected onto the bar. Makes ordering wine even more fun. So, and we also developed the W Hotel concept and designed the Cirque du Soleil building down in Orlando, Florida. And this is a really interesting project that we did pro bono for New Orleans, where it's basically the bottom of it is a marketplace, and then the top of it has a giant cistern on it, so the whole roof collects water for the area. We also do conceptual work. This was we tried to figure out what the subway of the future was going to be like. And this is a casino, Mohegan Sun Casino, one of the biggest money-making casinos. And this is the urban planning concept for Coney Island in New York. And it's really cool. And they're going to build it. And, David and Bruce Mao wrote this book called Spectacle. And it's they tried to figure out what spectacles were and why they're so interesting. And basically, they came up with the idea that spectacles are really big, they're brief, and they're bold. So I brought one copy of the book, and I brought it for Robbie, and maybe I'll pass it around to all you guys if you want to look at it. So another really interesting project that we just finished last year was for the Sheraton hotels, and they asked us to redesign their the lobby to rebuild their brand. And so we focused on this idea of making the lobby into like a park, and because the things that the Sheraton is about is all kind of related to the idea of a park. So we collected the materials and ideas that we wanted to incorporate into our lobby design, and then figured out this concept of having all these sort of elements drop into a lobby and change the behavior of all the people in the lobby. So we had this green wall and some new furniture, a community table, and then this little cart that would come around and sell food. So then they said, here's the lobby you have to use, and this was the lobby in Toronto. And so we built this living wall in there, which really, the funny thing about a live thing like that is that it's alive. And people had to take care of it and stuff like that, and it smelled and it did things on its own. So live things have like a life of their own, I guess. Anyway, so then we created a bunch of symbols and details to use in the lobby to hold things together and connect things. We designed lighting fixtures, carpets. This is one of the entrance carpet. And we designed this bell that, like a hotel bell, that when you rang it, it would talk to you or make sounds. This is another one of those good ideas that seemed like a good idea, but then it turned out that the people who worked at the hotel didn't want to put it out because they were afraid people would steal it. Then we did other like little elements like colorful pillows to liven up the place, and we made these rocking chairs for people to sit in, but we installed iPod speakers in them so you could sit down and listen to your own music while you were sitting in the chair. We also built this big community table, and not a communal table, but a community table, because we wanted this place to be like the center of their community. And we printed a map of Toronto on it and had posters that called out special places and things to go see. And we made game tables, but we made the game tables a little more fun, so they actually lit up. And so people really played games on them. And to encourage people to read and hang out in the lobby, we made this thing we call it the library couch or chair, and it's basically a bookshelf made into a chair. So people come and read books, magazines and stuff. And then the big event was the food cart, which we created this thing that would come out at different times during the day, and it would have a whole show and serve different kinds of food and stuff, and smells and all the reach all the senses that people had. And then to make even the building interact with people, we created these things like this was we call it the cloud mirror. So when you stand in front of it, you get turned into a cloud. And a more successful one was this frieze of butterflies that when you walked under it would fly away. That was the prototype. And then it was installed, these 3 gigantic screens above the lobby. So there's the whole ensemble. And it was really very successful because everybody actually did start doing different things in the lobby. So when you put everything together, you have more effect, and you can really change people's behavior and make things better. So that's what we do at Rockwell. And now I'm head of the lab, which is a research and development part of Rockwell. And I'm the lab chief, not the lab chef. And it includes this huge library full of all kinds of really great materials and books of samples. Okay, I got 10 more minutes. Good. So, well, back to the beginning. So in the beginning, the world was made out of rocks and stuff like that. It was basically just plain physics. And then plants started growing, and then fish grew, and dinosaurs, and then finally we evolved out of apes. And like I said before, what's different about us and those other things is that we make tools, and that's basically what design is. The fact that we design is what's really important about humans. And so as designers, we try and make things that work, and we try to make things that are more beautiful. We give form to our ideas, and we apply like ergonomics to make things that we can interact with well. So more or less that's what we do, or less is more, and form and function. It's always something. But the behavior of objects and the behavior of people are intertwined. So physical stuff makes experiences. So when I went to school, we were taught to design stuff like teacups and things, but we didn't just design the teacup by itself. We designed the set of teacups because we were talking about the rituals of drinking tea and what all the other things that you need while you're having tea. So maybe we should design also the table that we're having tea on, so that we can create the whole experience. So this idea of designing experiences isn't a new idea. I forget why I put that picture in. But what's important for designers to remember is that we're designing these things for other people, and that we have to understand who the user is. Like, these are some young users who happen to be my kids. This is a typical American family with their vehicles. Some users are stronger than other ones. We have to remember that we get older and lose some of our strengths. And who knows what the users are going to be like in the future. But one way we can understand users is through ergonomics. And war has been really a force in developing those ergonomics. So before the Second World War, people basically had old weapons that they used. But during the Second World War, a lot of new things were invented. So they needed to figure out how humans were going to fit in these things, like the gun turrets on airplanes. They had to make sure that that little spot was big enough for a guy to fit into, and not too big for him. So they had a whole lot of soldiers around, so they measured them all, and they figured out how big the big ones were and how big the small ones were, and then they could design their weapons to fit. So they took their dimensions and they put them all together, and they made charts and stuff. And then after the war, they figured they could do the same thing on women. And Henry Dreyfuss was one of the founders of ergonomics, and he did that during the war. And then after the war, he came back and started using the same ideas and applying them to telephones for AT&T. And we also applied those same kind of ergonomic ideas to making the Good Grips kitchen tools. But then I realized that there's more to there's the physical side is ergonomics, but the mental side is psychonomics, so that you need a way to understand things just as much as you need a way to hold them. So, for instance, this chair, if you like this chair, you'll think it's really comfortable. If you don't like this chair, it's like really uncomfortable. Like this chair is ergonomic, but people like this one better. Or Napoleon liked his throne better, even though it's not very comfortable. So, how you think about things makes your experience different. So, Homer doesn't think too hard about things. Or what religion you come from also defines how you think about things and how things feel. If you're happy, you can override a lot of like discomfort. Or if you're sad, no matter how comfortable things are, you're still going to find them uncomfortable. So there's ergonomics plus psychonomics. And then there's always economics, which nowadays is more important than either one of those other two. Because everyone just wants to get some gold. And that's why design is about persuasion and inspiration and trust. Trust is really important, especially these days when our leaders are not so trustworthy and we have big problems that we have to solve, like how are we going to get out of Iraq and how are we going to clean up from Katrina in New Orleans, and worse, how are we going to stop global warming? It seems like evolution is going backwards. So what else? Well, there's design. Design's good because it makes a difference. It gives us more choices and more chances, more opportunities, and for integration of and cross-pollination. So here's an idea I have for a holiday, a ritual. So most holidays you have something that you do, like on Christmas Santa Claus comes, or in the States we have Thanksgiving where we eat a turkey, or Halloween where we cut up pumpkins, or Hanukkah where you light candles. But for Martin Luther King Day, we don't have any good ritual. So, and I think that you don't have Martin Luther King Day here, but Martin Luther King was an important leader in civil rights, and you had the same problems with segregation that we do, and the idea is to make integration happen. So, in the United States, they had sit-ins in lunch counters where they wouldn't serve black people. So the idea of integration is really tolerance. And your guy helped you integrate in a nonviolent way. And that's what Martin Luther King did that too. So I think that Martin Luther King Day is a good celebration for everybody. So what should we do on Martin Luther King Day? I say, go out and have lunch with someone who's different. So, I hope on January 19th, next January, invite someone who's different to go have lunch. It works everywhere. Yeah. So, design is about inspiration. So, design is about making a better world because it makes design is smarter, it's better, it's cheaper. It's always costs more not to do design. It's good for Africa. It's good for everybody. It makes things better. And then maybe we can have some peace, like John and Yoko. War is over. Only if we want. So, make a difference. Because there's always something. Thanks.